There's something that's changed in the way I treat social situations, especially over the last maybe 5 or 6 years. When I was 15 years old, I had this one friend of mine who'd always say mean and hurtful things. And he'd say mean and hurtful things in college, specifically during situations when he was really stressed, when something would go wrong at home. And, we reconnected very recently and, we were just having a chat. And he himself told me, look, Varun, this is how I used to feel. And it was problems at home that I was taking out on you by saying all of these things. And I said, I kind of figured that out back then. But for the first 6 months of my relationship with that person, I used to take every word he said seriously. So if he said, I wasn't good at this, or he said any hateful thing, I'd take it as a direct attack against me and I'd get upset and I'd try to retaliate. But over the years, I've learned that most of what happens in humanity, from the micro factors like what happens at your house, or the macro factors, what happens on the economic level with politics and how different people are fighting with each other on Twitter. It all has to do not with the words being said, but with the underlying currents, the underlying emotions. So in this episode, I want to talk specifically about emotions because this is a topic that's not taught in school, right? Nobody teaches you how to deal with your emotions. I'm pretty sure you don't even know how to label your emotions. So in this video, we're going to specifically cover the aspect of emotions. So let's get started. All right, so underlying emotions. Humans rarely mean what they say. There are two types of emotions that you need to be careful about. The first one are the primary emotions. And next are the secondary emotions. We'll come to that in a bit. Emotions can carry over to the macro level. For example, based on the assumption that people are happier on sunny days, economists have found a positive correlation between the amount of sunshine on a particular day and stock market performance across 26 countries. There seems to be this inherent idea that, if somebody is mean to you, somebody is angry and says something, that you don't like, the immediate response is to attack that person, is to go into a defensive state, become narrow-minded, and, launch an attack. But in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't solve anything. Instead, we have to be like Sherlock Holmes. We have to figure out what the underlying emotion is and see if we can use that to our advantage to make sure that both people end up happy. In a situation where just you end up happy and the other person walks away sad, or vice versa, it's not going to work out well, right? You don't get what you want. Humans only work via cooperation. We only get better and bigger via cooperation. We only build and launch spaceships and rockets through cooperation, not by always being upset with each other. Let's learn what the different kinds of emotions are first. There are 8 primary emotions, and you've probably felt all of these emotions unless you are a psychopath, in which case this doesn't apply to you. So the first one is anger. Right? We've all felt anger. And anger, all of these emotions, there's the actual emotion and then there's the intensity of the emotion. So very, very intense anger can come out as fury, as outrage, as wrath. Mild anger could come across as irritability, hostility, resentment, and violence. Right? Violence is actually a major expression of anger. And similarly, we have sadness, we have fear, we have joy, we have interest, we have surprise, we have disgust, which is, I don't like seeing this. We have shame, and all of these emotions, and you've probably felt all of these emotions, and we're going to use this keyword set to label emotions in the future. These are all hardwired in your brain. You can't do anything about them. You're born with these emotions, with the ability to feel these emotions. Other people are born with the ability to feel these emotions as well, which they express in terms of words, but the translation is never 1:1, and I'll show you why. In certain situations, you can have combinations of the above emotions too. You could feel anger and sadness, right? So a lot of people, when their parents pass away, or say their father or their mother passes away, they not just feel sadness, but they also feel anger. They feel bitter at themselves because they feel like, I could have been there for my parents and I should have done this or I should have done that. And so you can have combination emotions. And as you can see, emotions can be directed. So sometimes you can have general anger, right? You could just feel angry at everything. You can feel irritable at everything, or you could feel irritable at a particular person or at a particular thing. Today, taking a reverse in my car and I scratched my gate. right? And then I felt irritability towards the gate, right? I felt anger towards the gate, and then I felt sadness for my car. So, or for myself, because, the car is an inanimate object. But I felt sadness for myself because I'm like, okay, I have to go do all of this. And then I felt a little bit of shame because I'm like, you know what? I feel the regret of having not looked behind and not seeing where the gate was. And then I felt anger at myself, right? For feeling the remorse, because I said, you're late for something. Why are you doing this? So as you can see, emotions can be a chain. It's not just one emotion. We simplify things by saying this person is angry at that person. It's actually a long chain. So there are the idea of secondary emotions. Sometimes humans have secondary emotions, which is an emotional reaction to an emotion. As I was taking my car behind and I hit the gate, I felt anger at the gate. And then because of that anger that I felt an entire set of emotions. So you have to understand that the primary emotions there were anger at the gate and then regret or shame at myself, right? And then there are secondary emotions which are attached to the anger of the gate. And then there's a secondary emotion attached to shame at myself, which is anger for feeling shame at myself. So as you can see, you can have 5 primary emotions that you feel in a situation, and then each one of them can have secondary emotions, and those secondary emotions can continue running. You see how complex this gets? These secondary emotions are usually learned, right? We learn these culturally. We learn these through family, through friends. For example, a lot of people feel ashamed when they get angry. When they go out and they have an anger outburst, then they feel ashamed for having behaved erratically in public. If you scream at somebody in public, later on you feel ashamed. You tell yourself, oh, why did I scream in public? So that is actually a learned response. If your parents never stopped you from screaming in public, you would be completely okay screaming in public. Right? This is a learned response. Most people don't realize this. In fact, children who've grown up in orphanages where there's no corrective measure, they often tend to get angry a lot, and then they never feel ashamed about being angry. Right? So feeling ashamed when you get angry is a learned response. Feeling anger when you feel ashamed, for example, when your feelings are hurt, that is also a learned response. Feeling fear when you feel ashamed. Maybe, in the past you've been punished for anger. Maybe you shouted at somebody and then, your parents came and shouted at you. So every time you get angry, you start getting scared, right? So these are all learned responses, and that's what we call secondary emotions. And these are learned culturally, right? In a situation, try figuring out whether you're having a primary or a secondary emotion. If you're having a secondary emotion, then try figuring out what the primary emotion is. If you figured out the primary emotion, then try identifying the correct situation responsible. It sounds like a lot of detective work to do, but at the end of the day, this is what teaches us, or this is what helps us understand the situation better so that we can resolve it. So let's look at this image for a second, right? If the person on the left comes to you doing this and says, it's fine, the underlying current would probably be sadness, right? I don't have enough information, but just going by looks, it can feel like, even though this person has said the words, I'm fine, which means, if you were to take that literally, you think, okay, this person is okay. But the truth is, the underlying current could be sadness. Look at this image now. If the person on the left says, I'm fine, then the underlying current could be anger, right? Even though it's the same words as the previous slide, I'm fine, the underlying currents are different. So as you can see, the translation between words and emotions are much harder to translate than we think it is, right? Humans, which is you and I, can read faces and emotions. We are hardwired to do so. It's in your DNA. Try to label emotions as primary or secondary, and that can help you practice this, right? Silence also carries underlying currents. I once worked with this very difficult employee who, every time I'd give the employee feedback, he would just become very quiet. He wouldn't say anything. He would just, not talk the entire day. And every time I said something, he would not respond back. Today, the words for that are passive aggressive. But back then I thought, maybe something is wrong with this person. Can I help this person? And these set of social skills, I didn't learn them early on because I came from a very orthodox or a very conservative family. So I didn't have enough time and opportunity to go out and meet as many people as I could and learn from them, learn from these situations. But as I, moved out and went to college, I was in more and more such situations. And as I started a company and I started working with people, that's when I started realizing that people don't mean what they say. Silence also carries value. So, how do you read a room? If you're in a room and there are, two or three people arguing or talking about something, you have to learn how to read a room. This is called reading a room. Reading a room basically means you pick out what emotion everybody's feeling and why they're feeling that emotion. So, you try labeling all parties' primaries and secondary emotions. So, you try picking out everybody's emotions. Maybe one guy is shouting and that person's angry. Maybe another person is ashamed. Maybe another person is just interested in the entire conversation. So, try identifying the core need that is creating the emotion. Every time we express an emotion, it's because one of our core needs are unfulfilled, right? So this usually comes from Maslow's pyramid and is a response to a missing factor. It could either be unfulfilled or something that is fulfilled. So look at the Maslow's pyramid here. As you can see, there's breathing, there's food, there's water, and at the top, very top, there's things like morality, creativity, spontaneity, and these are all things that you might think they're trivial to human beings, but it's wired in our DNA to want and need these things. So somebody could just be angry because they haven't eaten food. It could be something as simple as that. And then somebody could be angry because their self-esteem is hurt. And then somebody could feel shame because their friends have rejected them, right? So you could lack any of these things. So you have to pick something that is missing from the Maslow's pyramid or something that's been given. For example, if somebody is promising to give another person food, then you might feel interest, right? So you're being the promise of being given something. So it's called an anticipatory emotion, right? So you might feel that too. So for you, what you need to do is first get the emotion. And actually, we look at this in the next slide. So if there's an argument or if there's a room you want to read, here's how you do it. First, you label the primary and the secondary emotion. You find the situation or event that gave rise to the primary emotion. Maybe, you came home and your flatmate or your housemate ate the cake in the fridge and you were leaving the cake for the next day for when you came home. So now you feel anger. You feel anger towards your flatmate, and then you're also you don't have food. So you're also feeling the sadness of hunger, right? Or the sadness of having lost your food piece. But for you to direct and think that the other person has done all of this because of malicious intent, because they wanted to take your food, is probably not true, right? Don't attribute to evilness or maliciousness what you could just attribute to incompetence. Maybe the guy was just hungry, right? Maybe the guy or girl was just hungry and ate the cake because he or she had no other option, right? So you should think about situations like this. So find the situation or the event that gave rise to the primary emotion. Then find the missing need from the Maslow's pyramid that needs to be addressed. In this case, the missing need for the other person to have eaten the food was obviously it's a basic need, which is food, and it's also a basic need for you, which is food. But then it's also, and let me just go to this chart, it's also the idea of belonging, right? It's also the idea of esteem, because you feel like the other person has violated your respect by eating your food. So there are many different emotions that you feel on a daily basis, and learning to label them is very important, right? Address the emotion and the need. So the next time you speak to your flatmate, this is how I would do it. I would go to her or him, and I would say, listen, you ate my food, and I understand that you ate my food because you were hungry, right? You probably didn't think it through. But you have to understand that I was leaving that piece of food for today. I was angry at you, and then I realized why you did it. But for our sake, to keep the respect and the belonging in this relationship, is it okay if you don't touch my food from now on, right? No hard feelings against you, right? And this is how I would have this discussion. And whenever I have discussions like this, my food is usually kept where I need it to be kept. But most people will instead call up their flatmate and fight, right? And that is not a solution. It's not something that works in the long term. It adds more complex emotions to the situation. Now the flatmate feels not just shame, but then also anger towards you, right? Because you call them randomly and blame them for something that's primarily human, right? To want to eat something when you're hungry is human. But you blame them for that and they feel shame because they ate your food, and then they feel angry back at you, and then you feel shame because you were angry to your flatmate, and then that could spiral into something bigger and you guys could have an argument about something completely different. I remember this one time where my flatmate came to me and he said, and this was back in Manipal, right, when I was very young, and he said, you've eaten my food. And then we had an argument about it. And then he said, by the way, you also always leave the geyser on. Why do you always leave the geyser on? We're wasting electricity. And then I argued and I said, you also leave the geyser on, right? And it spiraled and there were so many issues. But at the end of the day, it was a core basic need of food. And, I remember we stayed together for 4 years, right? And we learned and we really spent a lot of time learning about emotions during that period. We also read a lot about it. And I think 3 years later, when we had a similar argument, it was very simple. He said, you ate my food or whatever. And I pulled out my car keys and I said, come, let me go, make it up to you. Right? And that's it. That's where the argument ended. No talk about geysers, no talk about anything else, right? So I feel like a lot of issues escalate from very basic Maslow's pyramid-based issues, right? So try to figure out exactly what the root cause is and fix the root cause, and then you fix the entire cascade of events. And that is how you read a room and solve it. All right, guys, thank you for joining me on this episode. Catch you on the next. Bye-bye.